Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Thank you so much for joining us once again for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. I'm joined today by probably my favorite person in the whole wide world. And I'm sorry, Pastor Anna, it's not you.
Oh, that's
me.
But
it is my wife, Erica.
Shoot.
But we have y'all both on today because obviously the youth just got back about a week ago from their IYC trip. And Erica was one of the chaperones / youth leaders on the trip. And we want to talk a little bit about the trip. Obviously, we want to celebrate the things that God is doing in every ministry here at the church, but also kind of open up the door a little bit so people can get a little inside look on what happens during these events and entrust their kids with us.
Not with you, with us.
To that way we can lead them to the right conversations, to the right relationships, but also point them to Jesus. Yeah. So first off, let's start off with like day number 1 of IYC.
Sure. Can I start by saying like what IYC is a little bit?
Yeah. Oh,
is
yeah,
okay?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Paint us a picture of what IYC is.
Sure. So IYC stands for International Youth Convention. It's a convention that started in around 1920s within the Church of God Reformation movement, which is the movement that Southridge Church aligns itself with. Yeah. And so we have been sending kids to this type of convention for really at this point generations. It could be generational experiences within families, households, and communities. And so it's really an effort towards seeing young adults, teenagers get to a location where they can be encouraged to see that there are other teenagers that are also trying to live a life for Christ, and to be empowered with speakers and worship experiences that draw them near to the Holy Spirit, and to leave them in a place where they can experience life change. Yeah. That is really the backbone, if you will, of that type of event. Everywhere you look, I've been going to International Youth Conventions since 2008. They're every other year, hosted in different cities across the nation. And really, you can see that the desire is for people to experience a life change when they are there. And so it's such a great event for teenagers, for adults, because that life change isn't limited. It's an opportunity for everyone to consider, what am I doing with this faith that I claim? Or what am I doing with this faith that I am now exposed to? I have some decisions to make so that my life can look the way that God might intend for it to look. And so that's kind of the heartbeat behind it. And I get very excited to take kids on a trip like this. Many of the students, especially here in West Virginia, they don't get to experience a lot of leaving home, a lot of opportunities to see things outside of maybe the occasional summer vacation with family. Yeah. And so this, for many students that I've experienced through the years, is a lifetime experience. They get this and they may never do anything like it again. So that's a little bit of like a snapshot of what IYC is and why we do it.
Yeah. Now, Erica, this is your first trip. Obviously, we've only been here for 2 years now, and the first year, everything was still pretty much shut down and locked down for COVID reasons and everything else like that. But what were some highlights for you taking away from this trip that you're like, this is just going to stick with you for the rest of time here?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
There's tons of highlights. Like, we just seen the kids worship for one with a North Rock. Is that what?
North Point worship
North
team.
Point worship.
Yeah, out of Atlanta.
that was really awesome. A couple of the girls that would rush to the stage just to get enthusiastic about worship. That was amazing. Seeing some of the girls step out of their comfort zone to pray for random people on the Riverwalk, that was a big one for me. Seeing them, because it's not, for teenagers, it's not always easy to pray out loud. And so to see, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm just adjusting your microphone so we can hear you a little bit better.
Hey, that's first time probs. Don't worry about it, kiddo.
Kiddo. You're younger than me. Anyways, to see them praying for other people along the Riverwalk, just step out of their comfort zone, that was a big one for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's so good. And it was kind of like a going back to where we spent most of our lives in San Antonio, and just before we kind of get into like some more meat and potatoes of it, you were able to kind of show like what like real good Mexican food was.
Yes, she was.
Only on our first day. It was kind of disappointing.
It doesn't matter. It was enough for us.
We
not
went
for
to
you,
one
probably.
place. Yeah, not for me. We went to La Soya's across from the church. We went there for breakfast one morning, and then we did go to another place on the Riverwalk that I'd never been before, and it was good.
Yeah.
But I felt a little disappointed we didn't get to do more Mexican food, but at the same time, it's freaking expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we were downtown San Antonio,
Yeah.
whereas, when we're out a little bit from downtown touristy places, it's a little more decent.
It's cheaper,
But being downtown, you kind of just have to pick and choose. Okay, sandwiches again today, everybody.
Yeah. Now, the first day traveling and everything else, and walk us through a little bit of like some of the the instances that happened and that like some of the challenges that were presented to you, and how do you move forward from that type of challenge?
So if you're listening and you've ever traveled outside of, forget it. If you've ever traveled, you know that not everything goes as planned every single time. And I was prepared for that. I was prepared for worst case circumstances. I told everybody to bring a carry-on bag with changes of clothes in case our luggage gets lost. Everybody needs to have this thing and this thing and this thing, just in case. Did my best to prepare everybody. It wasn't enough.
No, it was not.
I really, really, really thank the Lord. I know it was the Holy Spirit. I was able to keep a pretty level head throughout all of it. But inside I was going, what is going on? What is happening? So when we first got to our first airport, there was a delay for weather, which was totally, that happens. It didn't seem like a big deal. But due to the delay, we missed our connecting flight, and there wasn't another flight until the morning, which was 9 hours later.
Well, it had rained really bad here the day of, and so they pushed back the flight out of here to Charlotte, and by the time y'all got to Charlotte, that other plane was just like, everybody's like, man, we got extra leg room on this plane.
Yeah, that was our leg room.
Yeah.
They took it. No, they had to do what they had to do. I get it. It's travel, whatever. So we did have to stay in the airport for about 8.5, 9 hours waiting to get to our next flight. And that timeline seemed like an eternity, but it wasn't. We purchased some cards, decks of cards at the airport. Actually, the girl, I bought 2 decks of cards, and she says, would you like a receipt for this? And for 2 decks of cards at an airport, it was like close to $20-25. And I looked at her and I said, no, you can keep the receipt. I never want to remember this moment.
It was bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
And so we did stay busy. We kept ourselves busy, made the most of it. Tried to get as much sleep as we could, sleeping in a chair, sleeping on the floor, whatever we could do. And we got our connecting flight, which was, we finally got to our flight that next morning, and it was a really nice flight. Once we got on board, I feel like it went really quick, smooth. Everything was just as good as it could be. So it was really that in between time, just getting pushed back and trying to find ways to get some rest.
And don't forget, we had 14 teenagers with us.
Well, we had eight teenagers and 5 adults. So we're sharing the load in a lot of that, like trying to let adults take turns sleeping and watching and vice versa. And I mean, we definitely made the most of it. We'll end with that comment. We made the most of it because it was kind of a cruddy place to be in. Yeah.
And now one of the goals for this trip, because I mean, it was a little bit longer trip that y'all usually take, but one of the goals is to try to do some more missions minded events and kind of like outreaches. And y'all were able to actually get in contact with the church that gave me my first shot in ministry and help them out. Talk a little bit, Erica, about some of the things that y'all did at the church just to kind of help them out. But then also just that opportunity of being a help when, to other churches.
So I reached out to our home church, which is in San Antonio, and got in contact with the children's pastor, and she had some projects that needed to be done around the church. We did end up getting there almost like half a day later than we originally planned, but we still knocked out like an entire floor in the nursery. We ripped up what they had there. We laid down new flooring. We painted an entire room for their kindergarten class, the Rainbows class. And then we did just a bunch of little things. A lot of it was cleaning up after ourselves and making sure all the toys were nice and clean and stuff like that.
Tasks.
Organizing one of the shelves had come down in the craft room that we not replaced, but reshelved and then organized that room. So it was fun. The kids loved it. We had a lot of fun. We were tired from the trip, but everything that they wanted to get done got done. So.
That was cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's one of those things that I think it's really important just for Christians in general, just to always have in the back of their minds, is that the church down the road is not your competition, because we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's pointing people to Jesus, and into meaningful and lasting relationships with Him. And I think that's such a great experience for them, even though it's in 5, 6, 7 states away or whatever. I mean, it's close to 2,100 miles away. It's still a good thing for the youth to be able to say, you know what, like, we're going to do whatever it takes to help another church out. Like, if they're struggling with something or if they need a project done, like, how can we step up to meet those needs that they have, which is good.
It definitely came from a personal experience of mine. My very first international youth convention was in San Antonio, Texas in 2008. And so I can recall going to that event, going to that conference. And then after the event, we did some local service project. We helped do a VBS at one of the churches downtown. It was kind of in a struggling neighborhood, and we slept on church pews, and I don't remember everything from that event or that experience, but I remember that it felt very important. Like, there was something as a 17-year-old that I thought, this is really important, like what we're doing here. Because there was a really good chance, had we not been there to help, they probably just wouldn't have ministered to that community, or they would have, and it would have not been, as well done as it could have been. And so when we were planning this event, I knew that I wanted some type of serving to be attached to it, some type of opportunity for students to not just receive new experiences with Christ, but also give back, and recognizing, like, oh, this is how this works. Like, Christian lifestyle isn't just, God, for me, will you do this? God, I want this. Like, it's not a Christmas list to God. Like, it's actually a very strong serving type relationship, because we model our life after Christ, and He gave everything. And so that was definitely a huge pull when planning for this. And from my own experience learning, I want to do it before the event so that we didn't do it with empty tanks. We wanted to do it with what we had and then refuel at the convention.
Oh, I can't imagine having to do that after that event. Like I was done for after.
Well, I mean, technically y'all were on empty tanks with like your flight schedule and everything else. Y'all were pretty wiped out a couple of times whenever Erica and I talked, but I think it was just super important. Like you said, just to kind of echo what you said, it's more than just showing up on Sunday and coming to service.
Yeah.
And it's not just a 1 day of the week relationship. It's a 7 days a week relationship, the 24 hours. Like your life has to mimic that. I'm doing something for Jesus, and like there's something more to it, than to this life.
And we had so much fun still, even though we were there working. Like we just had so much fun. They pulled out the Gaga pit for us.
Oh yeah,
and we had the basketball hoop. We played extreme horseshoe. If you guys know Jason and Sam Ty, who serve on the worship team, their oldest son, he was playing a version of horse. Like basketball, did I say horseshoe? I meant horse. Like basketball horse. He was playing a version that left us all in stitches. Like we could not. It was amazing. Feel free to ask him about that because it was just incredible. We got to the point where we worked so hard that our socks stood up at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh! That did not happen. You did that.
That's gross. That's gross.
Dude,
you're welcome.
Yep.
So what
Welcome
happened?
to the potluck. You never know what you're gonna get.
So what happened?
You hit me with it. You hit me with it. That was like your own version of mystery meat, and I didn't like the way it tasted.
You're welcome. Erica, she has to redeem herself at some point. You will. You'll get your chance, buddy. Don't worry
was
about
all
it.
you, Anna. So sneaky.
Anyway.
Yeah. So y'all get done serving, and y'all have obviously just blessed them, and it's so awesome that the kids were able to do those things where you were able to, rip up flooring, put down some new stuff, paint, reorganize, like totally wipe down and clean toys for the nursery and their little toddler rooms and stuff like that. I think that's just an amazing experience for them. So youth convention is starting. Was there a theme that youth convention had?
Yeah. Was it engage?
I remember the verse.
All right. Hold on. I know what it is. I'm the worst. Upgrade.
Oh my gosh. I was like, up something.
Look, it has been a long summer, and I'm trying to use my brain the best I can. It was upgrade. And you actually had personal connections with the verse.
Yeah.
Do you care to share a little bit?
Yeah.
That was cool.
Actually, Jared and I both have connection with the verse. It's Isaiah 43, 16 through 18, I believe. And we use that verse anytime. If you'll just quit.
Just keep your mouth in front of the microphone, please.
It is.
All right.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Anytime we go through struggles, Jared and I, since the very beginning, since we first lost that first job.
Yeah.
That was the verse that we put on our mirror in the morning to read. Cool. So that was something that we always come back to that verse whenever we're going through struggles. And it's not just that, but every time that verse is what we have. I even have it on a little candle at my house. Yeah.
And the big kicker from that verse was the concept that God is starting something new.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting something new.
No, what really got me was before the conference even started, Anna and I are sitting there like joking around before the service. I don't even remember what we were doing, but we're talking about making it over the mountain and that, we're 39 years in, like to the 40 years. Like we were just kind of making jokes of, not jokes, but just like goofing around, making examples of like different stories in the Bible where people are going through struggles and they have just that tiny bit further to go before they see the promised land.
Yeah.
And then that ended up being the
that was
the
verse
scripture,
of
and we were like,
session. Yeah, it was really cool because it was this very like God reminding us like, hey, all of the flight delays, all of the schedule changes, all of the things like the kids getting sassy and grumpy, us getting sassy and grumpy, like all these things. It was just like, hey, don't miss that this might be the last thing you have to do like this before my blessings
Yeah.
fall on you, like before you get to see the promises that I've made to you. And then to have that verse be the one that's like, I'm going to transform all of this and make something new. And it was just like,
do you have the scripture pulled up there?
No, but I can pull it up while we continue to chat.
So it's this theme of upgrade, and God is about to do something new. Was there anything that you saw in the kids, Erica, that you were like, okay, like there's something, like I can see some change happening in their lives. I can see them responding to worship. I can see them responding to these responses, the altar calls, and like was it almost like tangible, like seeing change happen in their lives?
I think you could see it everywhere, not just in our kids. You could see it in certain other kids. But with our kids, there were a couple that I kept seeing going back and forth. It was really weird because you would see a change, and then it was like we would leave and do something, and you'd kind of see it falter a little bit, and then come back, and then falter a little bit, and then come. I don't know. It was really weird. But I mean, you saw it everywhere. It wasn't just with our kids. There were so many, like the atmosphere. Like the Holy Spirit was just there.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And I think that like for young kids too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, just because I'm not in youth ministry, 100% of the time, but whenever, and I think this could be true for all humans, it's just that whenever we do something new and you know that the change is going to be good, there's still some kind of like skepticism in doing this, just because such like old versions of ourselves are constantly vying for that attention spot. You know what I'm saying? Like
for sure.
that spot that our eyes are focused on. It's kind of like whenever I'd made the decision to quit drinking, there was a lot of times in my life and trying to work on my sobriety that I was always looking behind me going, man, it's like that was such a big part of my life, this lifestyle, the way of thinking, the way that I was doing things. But I knew that I had to keep on keeping my eyes forward. It wasn't just like a light switch overnight, you know.
Yep.
It's like kind of like this ebb and flow almost. I mean, do you is that something that you see in youth? Like you're like, okay, I know that they're trying, but they're still kind of struggling with some things in the past. And
for sure.
I mean, is it more predominantly seen in youth than it would be with like adults?
I think that it is, only because teenagers and young people are more apt to talk about it.
Okay.
No offense to anyone who's older, but the older you get, the more you feel like I should have my act together by now.
Yeah.
And so teenagers are more likely to say, hey, I did this thing. I know I'm not supposed to be doing that, but it happened. I know that God forgives me, but I just need you to know that like this is an area where I'm still really struggling. I thought I had conquered this, but I haven't.
Yeah.
Where adults are more likely to keep that a secret.
Yeah.
And kind of like maybe confess that to one other person, or what, like where teens are just, they're at a place where they know they don't have it all together. Like they know that like, hey, I know that I shouldn't have my act together, but even then, many of them still feel the pressure to have it together.
Yeah.
So it is this like really unique coexistence of, hey, it's okay to fail in this place, but also this thought of like, if I fail, what happens then? Like what happens next? And the more that we create a safe place for them to bring those failures to the table to get addressed and to see that change take place, the more safe that becomes, the more we're going to see a genuine, authentic approach to living a life after Christ. And because I actually ended up pulling up the program booklet, and the highlighted verses from the event was verses 19 and 20 of Isaiah 43, which say, "Forget the former things and do not dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." And the overarching concept was that there is something powerful that God is creating for us to discover and to cling to.
Yeah.
And it does remind me of, so we talk about documentaries, like you're a big doc guy.
Mm-hmm.
I love nature documentaries. I just like nature.
Yep.
And after a wildfire, like life doesn't return immediately.
Yeah.
Like it takes time, but eventually the life returns to that area, like to that wasted, fired land. But it takes time. It takes sometimes years and decades. And that's kind of like my vision and approach to helping teens, discipling them, saying, look, your life is a wasteland. Like, look at it. Like, let's look at it. I mean, let's be real. But that doesn't mean it has to stay like that. Like, God can start to spring up new things. And you remember you used to say that. You don't say that anymore. Like, that's a new thing.
Yeah.
You used to do that. You don't do that anymore. That's a new thing. Or even to say, like, you didn't do that time. You did it the next time. But that one time, remember, that's a new thing. You used to do it every time. Whatever that is, like, just bringing attention to the new things that God is doing and springing up. Because it's so easy to look at the death and the dead and the things that aren't going right.
Yeah.
Which it was easy to do. Even on our trip, it was easy to pay attention to these things that weren't going right and miss out on the things that were incredible opportunities that God was presenting us.
Yeah. That's so good. So good. I think that this is one of those things that you're going to see the fruits of the labor in like a short amount of time. I think it's one of those seeds that fell on good soil, you know, the things that were talked about and the things that were the conversations that you had with our youth as well. I think it's one of those things that we're just going to see like really amazing and incredible things through the youth in short time.
Yeah, man, we hope for sure.
Yeah. And it's not like, how do I put this in such a nice way? It's one of those things like whenever you plant a tree, and if like one leaf like is ugly or deformed or whatever, or a branch, it's not like, okay, I'm going to cut down the whole tree. It's just like we're leading these youth and these kids, and sometimes just a little bit of pruning needs to happen.
Well, and that's definitely where like that's the Lord's work, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because we get the opportunity to lead the best we can in the direction we can, and along the way, and this was true of my generation, it's true of this, it's true of generations before. We see it in scripture. There are going to be people that say, you know what, this isn't what I thought it was. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And that's as heartbreaking as that is, because it truly is. Like, those are the things that keep me up at night, saying, God, I need you to take this off my mind so I can get some sleep.
Yeah.
Like, truly. But that's God's responsibility. Like, I have to just trust that those lives are in God's hands, and he is, you know, directing and leading, and he's given us places where we need to direct and lead. And, but you hope that many cling on to this future that God's offering them.
Yeah, that's so good.
I think I see it a little bit differently, though, because coming from somebody from my background where I went to church a lot growing up, and then I went to college and didn't go to church, you know, and then Jared and I had our little fling, and then we decided to go back to church.
Fling, huh?
But we wouldn't have been that way if we didn't have that foundation as a child or as a teenager. For me, you know, we were both our entire childhoods, but so we like, I see it as even if they don't and they do leave the church, like they still have that.
Yes.
They're always gonna have that like little conviction there.
Yeah.
That seed that's planted already, that even when they aren't in church, they're gonna know that they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, that's where that hope is. It's the hope that God is still, we know God is with us, but the hope is that we recognize that he's with us. Yeah. Even whenever we are so far.
Yeah.
Like recognizing, like, all right, like I know God knows what I'm doing, these choices I'm making. And we hope to instill like this hope that, sorry, I'm saying hope a lot because it's true. Like when you're young and you don't know the future, you hope a lot. Yeah. I hope I go to this school. I hope I marry this person. I hope I end up, it's all a lot of hope. thankfully God is someone that we can put our hope in, a relationship with him. But yeah, I think that's exactly what it's about. It's saying no matter where I go from here, I learned that I can trust God in new areas of my life and see what he's doing. No matter what kind of life I've chosen up to this point, like God can do something new from this point forward. And yeah, I mean, there's pockets of that in my own life. Even now, I was talking with a kid yesterday and they said, I feel like I do so good. And then this is literally their exact words. They said, and then Satan allows people to come in my life to pull me off track. And I said, I don't mean to discourage you, but that still happens to me.
Yep.
Like that never stops happening. Like you just have to keep giving those moments to God. Like for as long as you live in a relationship with Jesus, you have to keep giving that stuff to the Lord because it's never going to stop. Like it's always going to happen. There are going to be people, circumstances, things that are going to come in and try to turn your life into a wasteland all over again. And you just have to say, no, God's doing something new here.
Yeah, being a Christian is not easy.
No way.
No, it's a constant and daily battle, but for sure, like the more time that you spend with the Lord, I find that the easier it gets to be able to say no to certain things, certain conversations, certain temptations that may arise in certain relationships as well. You just know that like I've seen both sides of it in my own life. Mm-hmm. I've allowed myself to kind of think about things in the past, think about relationships and, these people that I genuinely still miss, but I know the type of person I am and I know the type of lifestyle that I would go back into if I were to allow these people, these locations if I would go back to them. I know the type of lifestyle that I would go back into if I just allowed them to take over my mind and take over my thought process and everything else like that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that God placed me in West Virginia, because it's really hard to maintain those relationships from 2,100 miles away or be able to. Whenever we lived in San Antonio, I mean, we lived, 5 blocks away from like the bar that I worked for 13 years, Erica.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's tricky.
It's tricky.
Yep.
And it's trickier even doing that, being in ministry and trying to like having my first shot in ministry as well. It's like, man, every time I go home, I'm just like, I wonder who's in there, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
you
like,
drive past and you're like, oh, I know that car.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like I know that car, I know that relationship, but just allowing myself to say, God, like I obviously am not good at doing this by myself. Like I'm a failure whenever it comes to those things. And that's why it's so important. This reliance on God in everything that we do is just stated and reiterated and believing that, yes, he is going to do something new. Mm-hmm. He is going to take away those things that trouble us, those things that bother us, the things that, give us the most heartache, the things that keep us up at night.
Right.
And allow God to do what God does. Yep. And that's provide a way, that's provide healing and restoration and in those instances, which is really good.
Yeah, man.
So youth convention is over. We are now headed back home, and y'all did not have.
We had the worst trip home ever.
I agree.
The worst trip ever.
Traveling home was the part that I was looking forward to the most.
Yeah, because you're
at
like,
that point in time, because we were so tired.
Some sort of normalcy.
We're like, yes, finally.
It cannot go wrong. Like everything went right coming and wrong coming here. It cannot go wrong.
Can't go wrong
back
anymore. Well,
it went wrong.
It didn't go great. It didn't go great.
Well, we missed the fireworks we went to Cornerstone.
Yeah,
you forgot that, and they got to experience Texas heat for the first time.
Oh yeah, Texas heat.
Real Texas heat, so which was a big deal for me. Okay.
2 comments about Texas heat. One, I've been to Texas 5 times, and I don't remember ever feeling the way that I did that day that we were at Cornerstone for this 4th of July celebration. I felt sick.
It wasn't even
I
100
felt-
degrees
no, it
either,
wasn't.
though. It was like 97
the
maybe.
the humidity was up, the UV index was up, like all this stuff, but it wasn't that temperature wise. It wasn't that hot.
Yeah.
But so first, I've experienced Texas never like that before as a visitor. Let me say as a visitor,
Yeah.
I've never experienced it in that way. Second, I found out when I got home that I may or may not have had COVID at that point in my trip.
What?
So there's a really good
She was
chance
miserable.
that I was also dealing with that while in this ridiculous heat and then wondering why I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
So what was crazy to me, babe, was we get to the church, right?
Yeah.
Your dad drops us off. He leaves. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is the deal. You can go do whatever you want. It's safe here.
Yeah.
Meet us in front of the church at right after fireworks. That was our like plan. And we're like, okay, let's go. And we did our little cheer, physical education. And
Shout out to Big Pat, physical education.
And Nolan and I turn around and we walk towards the party.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like 30 yards away and I notice nobody's walking. And I turn around and they're all like spraying sunscreen on themselves and like making sure they're all covered. And I'm just, it was then that I realized like that's like the only time Texans put on sunscreen is if they're white, like really white,
Thanks.
or
Thank you.
or if we're swimming. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever stopped before I go to an event, except for Fiesta Texas, because we know we're gonna be there all
Yeah.
day.
Well, you know, Texas, we're proud people. You know,
No.
I don't know that we've.
You're
No.
proud of your
No.
skin cancer.
I don't. I don't know that. I don't. I
No,
feel it's like
but
a
it's
rite
just-
of passage. Like you
No.
haven't had melanoma yet.
I was just like, what are y'all doing? Like, what are you doing? They're like,
protecting
sunscreen.
ourselves
Like,
from the sun.
Yeah.
I really had to be like, why? Like, I was
was
so
awesome.
confused. And that's when I realized, like, we're Texans. Like, there's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like one of those things you don't think about until you get foreigners that come and put on sunscreen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Before you go.
We put on sunscreen.
We were
every
like
day.
2 hours before sunset. Like it wasn't.
Oh, yeah,
it
no,
wasn't early in the day, like early morning day.
All right.
Anyway.
I don't know if
Anyways.
I'm making any sense, but to
Yes,
me it
no.
was like really weird,
You're allowed
and
to
it
think
really
it's
made
weird.
me feel like an outsider with our
But
group.
we were the outsiders
Yeah.
with you. How's that?
All right.
that's true.
Get
That's so good.
Sorry, go ahead.
focus.
We're here.
Coming
So
home.
your trip home.
Oh.
So y'all had plans to get to the airport because y'all had a really early flight,
Yep.
and y'all are just going to get to the airport
Yep.
9ish, around 9 o'clock at night,
Yep.
and then just we're just going to stay in
Just
the
chill.
terminal.
Yeah, we had some plans. The plan was to watch fireworks at this park. They had a 4th of July celebration at the park. And then we were going to go get some late night dinner at like an IHOP 24-hour place and then head to the airport. Well, while we're sitting there at the park waiting we had 2 cars, a girl car and a boy car. We're waiting for the boys and just kind of feeling tired, worn out. Honestly, maybe even a little frustrated with like this, like, the crowd and like the schedule getting there a little later than we hoped and all that kind of stuff. I'm speaking for myself. I vividly remember looking at Erica and saying, do you think the airport is still open? Like my brain just went there only because when we were at Charlotte, people stopped coming in
Like
at
the
around
TSA stuff.
yeah, like they stopped coming in around midnight or 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then people started coming back around like 3 a.m., 3 or 4. And I was like, I wonder how late they're open. Like that was my original thought. I was like, I wonder how late they're open so that we can make sure we get there before then. I'm like, we just need to get there before midnight now because my
Yeah.
brain worked, right? And so Erica had cell service. None of us were like connecting. Even you had trouble. Like we were just all having trouble
we were in a
connecting.
really not
Yeah.
nice part of town.
And we were just having bad service
Yeah.
and like all. And so she pulls up her phone. She's able to call and they call her back and they say that the TSA
closes
at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
and
on
at
Sunday,
this point,
right? Was it
this
Sunday?
was a Monday.
Monday.
But it was a holiday. It was the 4th of July.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so we look, and it is currently like 9.
Yeah.
And I immediately...
She called during fireworks. Like, the fireworks
Yes.
were going off in the background, and I'm sitting on the phone with this lady from the airlines.
I literally feel my stomach drop, and I was like, I have failed everybody. Like, I've let everybody down in such a terrible way. And so Erica, thank God, like, she was tired too, but she was like, we'll just make a plan. And I was like, I just needed someone to say that. Like, because in my brain, I was like, I quit. Like, goodbye. I'm going to Mexico. Like,
yeah.
Have
like,
fun,
it's okay.
everybody.
We're only like 4.5 hours away.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It'll just be a new adventure.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, you're right. So we just start thinking like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We make a little plan, and it worked out. There was a little bit of meltdowns from some,
Oh,
and
my
that's
goodness.
okay. Like, you're young, you're trying to like be tough until
And it's
you're
been a
like,
long trip
yes.
already.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, nope. I can't be friendly and fun anymore. I hit a wall. And after those meltdowns and we made a little plan, everything went great.
The weird stuff that comes out of teenagers' mouth, though, like, she got upset, and then she was like, "In my show on Netflix or whatever, something." And we're like,
Netflix canceled this show. I love
what
watching.
does this have to do
Like,
with anything?
it was paired up with like the upsetness.
Looking at like a toddler, you're like, baby,
was like,
it's time for a nap.
is
And you're
so
like,
good.
I
This
don't
is
want to
the
take a
last
nap.
straw.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But it was so relatable because I was like, honestly, if I wasn't in the driver's seat, I might be right there with you.
Yeah.
And so we did. We ended up making a plan, and we went out. We went out to eat, and then we kind of like
Went to
drove.
Buc-ee's.
Yeah, we took like a 45-minute drive to Buc-ee's because a lot of our kids had never been to a ginormous gas station mall like that before.
Yeah.
And so did that, and then we just sat at Whataburger and played cards until the airport opened. And when it opened, we just drove over and got in. I mean, it ended up working out, everything, but we were all very tired. When we came home, we were very, very tired. We had been up for many, many hours.
We were done.
I talked to you for
Yep.
a second before I went inside to help Erica get her bags, and your eye was twitching. And your
joke.
head, and it was
whew.
Yeah, and then we had youth camp.
Yeah,
Right
and
after
then
that.
like 4 days later, I was on my way to set up for youth camp. So, but man, it was awesome. We had, I specifically remember one girl in particular saying, she's like, I know God's real, like, and I've believed in him, and I've seen him answer prayers and stuff. And she said, but I've never felt him before.
Yeah.
And I felt him here. Like, I felt him on this trip. And man, what a win. Like, there were other moments like that, but that's one that sticks out in particular in my mind. Like, having a kid say, I believe this stuff. I want to believe it even more. But now I've experienced it myself.
That's man, you
It
can't.
was so cool, man.
It's like I'd do that. I would go through that.
No joke.
Yes. Like the exhaustion,
All
the
of
working to do
Yep.
all that, the missed flights, connections, TSA closing down, just being frustrated and miserable just to hear one person say that.
Yep.
Like, I would do it. Like,
Yep.
I would do it nonstop, back to back.
No joke. I mean, that's exactly that's what I like to call Holy Spirit energy. Like, when I was here on Monday, we had staff meetings, and I was like, y'all, I feel like my outside is very weary. Like, my body is weary, but my spirit is so energized.
Yeah.
Like, that's Holy Spirit energy. Like, it's like, hey, don't forget what this is really about. Like, don't quit and don't give up. I actually heard that on a podcast on my way in this morning. I took a screen grab of the moment that I was listening to it, because they said if there's anything in your Christian life to keep you going as a leader, as like a pastor or a director or whatever your title or volunteer position is, what keeps us going and holding on to our integrity and holding on to the mission is think about the times that you had a moment with God, and don't stop thinking about those. Like, those are the moments that push you in, because they are everything. Like, they are everything that why we do what we do, remembering what the Lord has done for us. And that's why we keep going. That's why we put up with a lot of stuff, because we know that the end result are these moments with the Lord. So good.
And all of those issues just made for the trip to be like, looking back on it now, it's just gonna be like, remember when we went to San Antonio?
Yes.
How could I forget?
Like, and what's really cool is some of these kids won't get to go again unless they go as a volunteer.
Yeah.
So they're always going to remember going to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Whether if it's a bad thing that makes them remember it, then I'm okay with that, because then they have to remember why they were there, why they went. Every time they go to the airport now, they're going to think of that trip. Oh my
gosh, no joke.
Like every single time, they're going to think, oh, well.
Especially if they fly into Charlotte, they're going to be like, I slept there.
Dude, remember that time? There's these
let's go find that place where I slept.
You know, those triggers that you have in your memory. So I think that all the negatives can turn into positives as well.
Those are those monument moments, because I totally agree. There are things in my Christian life that I experienced as a teenager, as a young adult, that every time I see that specific restaurant or I see that specific license plate, I think of like, oh, remember when I did that thing there with my youth friends, when I went with that group or went with that church or whatever it was. For sure. That's an excellent point.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, you're about to get hit with your first mystery meat.
Oh, geez.
Erica.
Yay.
So do you know what it is?
It's a sandwich.
No. God almighty.
What the heck?
We had this conversation at IYC. She was like, Erica, do you think that this is a sandwich or not? And I don't remember what the question was.
She doesn't even know the question. She just says, it's a sandwich.
No, it's soup cereal.
Get this girl out of here.
No, it was a sandwich, because I was like, it's sandwich. Like Paul was like, it's not. And you were like, yes, it is. I was like, sandwich.
All right.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, so the mystery meat segment, since you're not an avid listener of the Pastor's Potluck podcast, of your husband's endeavors.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So the mystery meat, what it is that we have a whole bunch of random questions in here. And it's just like the buffet table at a potluck. There's just going to be something that's on the table that's completely random, and you don't know what it is. And
you know, the first time I saw this on your desk, I thought it was for one of our groups where they were cooking meat.
Oh, no.
Oh, our meat church group.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a part of that.
Okay.
Meat church.
So what we do is we have a whole bunch of random questions in here.
Okay.
We write them down, and then, this is more than one.
Oh, boy.
And then
we get to discuss
the randomness that is on this piece of paper. Are there any toppings or styles that should never be on pizza, like pineapple or like a hamburger pizza?
That's not a fun question.
Toppings.
It's easy.
Toppings or styles. Okay, so I got in hot water with this last time I was on here with Megan. I am not a picky eater. So there are very few things that go on a pizza that I won't eat.
Yeah.
I will say super spicy stuff I would pick off, like super spicy peppers, or like there was a pizza that Paul there is a pizza that Paul, my husband, really loves, and it has a spicy sauce.
Yeah.
And I have to pass on that because I'm not anti-spice. If given the option, like if it's the only thing to eat, okay, whatever. But if I have other options, I'm just not ready to sit up all night with heartburn or whatever. So super spicy stuff. Even like people go like anchovies, whatever. Like I would eat an anchovy on a pizza.
I wouldn't.
I've never had anchovy on a pizza, so I don't know if
we
it
have
tastes
anchovies in our house at all times. Paul eats them like nobody's business.
You know, the one thing that I think about when I think about this question is your family and that Louisiana pizza place that puts shellfish.
Ooh. Yeah, they have a place in Lafayette, Louisiana, where we're from. It's called Dino's Pizza.
And it's gross.
And they put like crawfish and shrimp. Well, she doesn't like it because she's more of a traditionalist whenever it comes to pizza. So she wants spicy stuff. She wants a pepperoni with jalapenos and feta cheese on her pizza. Like,
I do love
that's
some
my
feta cheese
pizza.
on pizza.
Like that's her
no
pizza.
Joke. That's
Stuffed
so
crust,
good.
even better.
With ranch on the side.
With ranch on the side. Not just any
Can
ranch.
we order
though.
that for lunch? That actually sounds delicious.
Lighthouse Ranch.
Lighthouse. It's got to be the Lighthouse Ranch.
Oh, gross.
It's not
Moving on.
Heinz or whatever. Whatever them. Okay, go ahead.
Kroger.
Yeah. No, you
Hidden
don't.
Valley.
you don't like-
Gross.
Yeah, you don't like Hidden Valley Ranch.
Nope.
No,
I will
but,
eat it if I have to, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I've never had anchovies on pizza. I'm not gonna go and put pineapple on pizza. I'm not gonna do that.
I will.
If it's already there, I'll eat it. But I don't think I've ever ordered a pizza with pineapple. Like, I don't think Anna Blake has ever done that in her life.
Out of the
no.
normal pizzas, like the normal ones you can go find on like a pizza place, a normal pizza place, not Dino's pizza place.
Yeah.
The only things that I probably won't eat are mushrooms
Uh-huh.
and anchovies because that's not normal.
Yeah, because we had pizza with mushrooms.
Yeah.
At
So
one
I'll just
stop.
pick them off though.
Yeah,
Like,
just
I
pick
don't
them.
mind the
Yep.
flavor.
Yeah, you just don't like the consistency.
Yeah, I don't like the weirdness that it makes in my mouth.
Dude, one of my favorite pizzas of all time, and this is gonna be the I don't know how, the redneck in me coming out is if you find a CC's that's still around.
Yeah.
CC's Pizza, they have this spinach pizza. It's like a spinach with Alfredo sauce on it.
It's good.
I can eat. I guarantee I can eat 20 or 30 slices
What
of
happened
it.
to CC's
So
pizza?
CC's after youth group when I was growing up, we would go there and we would always get their cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
And we would do
gosh.
contests to see who could eat one the fastest.
Oh my gosh. And
After
people are
every youth group,
throwing
every
up in
Wednesday.
the parking lot.
Dude,
This
That's
things are
what we did.
delicious.
that's
though.
my type of like competition. How fast can you eat this really awesome cinnamon roll?
So
They were
Um,
so good, dude.
extremely
They were good.
Fast.
They were
Eat the
good.
whole tray.
I don't know how
For
many
real.
CC's, but
So good. Is there? I think there's a CC's in Morgantown, West Virginia, still near WVU.
Yeah, it's like
But I
3
don't
hours
know.
away. It's not. CC's is good, but it's not like 3 hours. Let's
No,
drive
if you're
3
driving
hours.
through, then you're like, yeah, let's stop. But if you're like, I'm in the mood for CC's,
No,
let me just order some.
Hussons
Yeah.
or something.
Let me go get a DiGiorno from the Kroger.
it's
Yeah,
such a
for
West
real.
Virginia thing to say.
Hussons, yeah, Hussons Pizza here is really good. Well, you got Nana's casserole.
I do, but it's only a single question. I only brought a single spoonful of casserole today. So
Yeah.
if you've never been a part of the potluck, when I come on, I try to bring some Nana's casserole because, Nana, she can't show up to a party without bringing a dish. And so today,
The look on Erica's face. She was like, "You are still
Casserole.
exhausted."
Casserole is such a like culture thing. It really is. Growing up, I did not have casseroles.
No, the only time we
Ever.
ever had a casserole was like green bean casserole around
Like,
Thanksgiving.
During Thanksgiving, did you see any casseroles at my house? Let's ask Paul.
no, Paul pays attention to things like that.
No, there
Or
won't eat all of
I'll
it.
take that back. Whenever we were growing up, my mom used to make this. She called it hot dog casserole.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, there was 7 of us that
Okay.
she had to feed.
I'm here
And
for
so
it.
it was just like, what's
What's
cheap?
Nana's casserole?
That sounds like a youth group meal.
That's gross.
I'm here for it
What's
today.
cheap? What's cheap?
I'm gonna
and
look that up
and
see
what?
if I can make it today.
It was actually pretty decent, but like saying a hot dog casserole, it doesn't sound good, but it's actually not
Yum.
bad.
Okay.
Yum.
What's
Okay,
Nana's
so
casserole?
today's Nana's casserole is so youth ministry has not been around forever, since that's what we're talking about is youth conventions. For many, many years, the church just discipled young people the way that it had always been done. Whenever you reach a certain age, you start learning all of the things, the histories, the texts, the scriptures, and then you just are discipled into adulthood that way. But there was a point in time where this became a specific targeted group of individuals to minister to separately from children and adults. Around what time in human history did this take place?
The 60s.
Okay.
1952.
Okay, that's pretty good. This took place, youth ministry branched into its own kind of like area during the Industrial Revolution, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the early 1900s? Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, like late
1800s.
1800s.
Yeah. Okay. So, because it's kind of, there's no specific, like, this was the very first ever youth group. Like, no, that's,
yeah.
that would be so cool, but that's not a thing. But that was kind of the time frame. It was whenever they started seeing young men in particular entering the workforce and recognizing there was an opportunity, like a little bit of a divide before they got to the workforce age. Because in the past, you worked with your family and you started working as a kid. Like, you know, hey, the kids were a part of harvesting. The kids were a part of whatever the family did as their trade. Where now there's this industrial need for employees, and there was a gap. You weren't old enough to work, but you weren't young enough to be taught like a child. And so there was this in-between group that spawned teenagers and became an opportunity for ministry specifically to that group. So there you go. That's my casserole. But
I was about to say, where's the casserole?
That was it.
That was it. Sometimes it's questions. Sometimes it's a fact. Sometimes it's a little bit of both.
I love trivia. So it was a little bit of trivia / fact.
Nice.
A single scoop. It wasn't the whole dish. I left the dish at home.
Yeah.
But there was the scoop.
I know that that van, like bus ministry, like where churches would like go out and
into the community.
Hey, that's how I got to church as a kid.
Huh?
I got to church as a kid like that.
That was popularized in the 60s.
Yeah.
And there was one individual that they kind of pointed to that said, man, like he's doing something different, like to get kids and youth to church. And that was, oh my gosh, it was the oldest Barnett. So Matt
Carol?
Barnett, huh?
Carol.
No.
She just said a random
So
name.
Matt Barnett is the pastor at Angelus Temple in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Luke Barnett is the pastor at Phoenix First Assembly of God. And that was the church that it got started at, but it's the dad of those guys. I can't ever remember his name. But
Senior.
Yeah, the senior Barnett. And he would go out and they kept on buying buses, and then they kept on buying like school buses, and they would just like make sure that they would work or whatever, and they would just go out and get vans and everything, and they would go all over the city and pick up kids until it was just like, okay, we can't house like 600 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Very cool.
And then they kept on building larger facilities, and then they'd buy more vans.
I love it. Do we have time for one more question? This is just my curiosity. What is, like, you guys grew up with some like youth group influence from time to time. What was one of your highlight trips that you ever went on as a teenager? Do you recall something that really stands out to you? You're just like, yeah, this was really cool. Like I shared about my very first ever IYC San Antonio. That was a huge.
Does it have to be spiritual?
Standout. It doesn't have to be. Just something that you remember from your time as a student in a youth ministry.
I know your answer.
What is it?
Because I can think of, I'm looking, I don't know the name of it, but I'm looking at the DVD that
No,
you
that's
have.
Young Life. That's not the one I was going to talk about.
Young
but
Life
yes,
Camp.
That Young Life Camp changed my life. Yes, but that's not what I was going to talk about.
Oh, that's not the most memorable one? The one that you found Jesus in?
Changed my life.
Yeah, the one I found Jesus in.
Nope. I found Jesus before that.
I know, but you said it changed your life.
It did, because that's when I realized that I was called to ministry.
Yeah.
At the time.
Okay,
but that's not the one that I think about. When she asked the question, that's not what came to my mind.
Okay. But that's like a number 2, right?
That's a very close number 1, yes.
Very cool.
Okay, so it's number 2. Because that's what, very close.
Mine was the food fight. Remember me telling you about the food fight?
Yes.
I want to recreate it so bad. We had like this football field, and it was covered in tarps, and they had trash cans full of food. So it was so much fun.
I'm with you.
The oatmeal bucket.
Barf.
As a teenager, it was so fun.
Yeah, I have a different idea of fun.
As an adult, you do now, but I'm sure as a crazy little kid. I mean, if you put Nolan, our child, who is the spitting image of you,
Yeah.
in almost every way,
Yeah.
in and on a field with a bunch of food.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me you would not pick it up and throw it at somebody.
Well, yeah, because our has
Is
ADHD.
Y'all are the same though.
Is you as a child? Yes, you
Yeah.
would have done it.
I think for me, the first like youth camp I went to, it was the first time I saw people get in a fight. Like, and I was young. I was like the first year, like I just had a birthday or whatever, and they're like, "All right, you're old enough." And so I'm sitting, and like 2 tables away is like the first time I saw like people like fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Like bald fists, and you could just hear like, you know, just the sound of people fighting. But I think I don't know. I just always enjoyed being there, but since we moved like at some pivotal years in my life, I didn't have like good youth camp experiences. Like there was other kids that got caught like drinking and like smoking weed
That happened at one of mine.
on youth camps. But I at that point, whenever I was old enough to go to youth camp in Texas, I think I went to one in Louisiana, and that's where I saw the fist fights and then we moved to Texas, and that's whenever there was a lot of bitterness. I was still going to church. I was still involved to an extent, but I was still trying to find and look to do things my own way.
Going through
Polar bear camp. Remember me telling you about that? You know the Frio River?
The Frio River? Yeah.
Okay, so it's always 70 degrees, like even in the summer. But it gets colder during the winter, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Hence
I'm
the
pretty
name
sure
Frio.
it does.
That's Spanish for
It's
cold.
It's cold. And so there's the camp out past my house, my hometown. Anna. Jared.
I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And it's a polar bear dive. Like you jump in the water.
The polar bear
Like, polar bear.
Polar bear plunge.
And so you jump in the river. It's like a rite of passage almost. Like you can't go to camp unless you jump in the river.
That's so fun.
You know what?
That's fun. That sounds fun. I'm trying not to laugh because of Jared's tongue tie moment. I don't want to be like totally rude.
Anyways.
No, that
And
sounds
this
good.
is where we say goodbye.
Those are good.
Toodles.
Hey, appreciate y'all.
Yep. Y'all have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.